And he is joining us now. Dr. Wittman, great to have you, sir.
John, great to be with you this morning.
So, the impeachment vote yesterday, you voted no. All Republicans voted no. Give us your take on this whole thing now that they've had the vote, and Pelosi is saying they've now formalized the impeachment inquiry process. Dr. Wittman, give us your insight.
Well, John, the resolution that came before the House yesterday really is no different than what the Democrats are pursuing now. They are holding these hearings behind closed doors. You still can't get access to the transcripts. And what this resolution yesterday pretty much said was that if witnesses are going to be called by the minority, Adam Schiff has to approve of them. If transcripts are going to be released, it's Adam Schiff who will approve of that. If the president is going to have counsel to listen in on the testimony, it will only happen at judiciary, and it will be approval of the Democrats to do that. So nothing has changed. This resolution yesterday really put Adam Schiff in charge, and Adam Schiff was already in charge,
Right.
and is the gatekeeper for all the things that come out. So it's interesting too. What a 180-degree move the Speaker has made. I want to give you a quote, John, that happened back in March of this year. This is what Speaker Pelosi said. She said, "Impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country." Those are her exact words, John. And here we are 180 degrees around where they are in secret in the bowels of the basement,
Right.
Pursuing testimony with these individuals, trying to come up with something. The bottom line is this, John, is that the most important transcript is already out there. That's the conversation between President Trump and President Zelensky. And period, there is no quid pro quo there. Secondly is, in order for there to be a quid pro quo, Ukraine would have to believe that this funding was being withheld. Well, almost up until the time that the funding was released, they didn't even believe that it was being held back. And the question only was, hey, when is the funding coming? And the funding was released, and there was nothing done that was alleged to be a quid pro quo. In other words, there wasn't any investigation on Hunter Biden. So in order for it to be a quid pro quo, there has to be that exchange. So they didn't institute an investigation on Hunter Biden or the Ukrainian energy company. They didn't know until just before the funding was released that it was even being held back. And as you can see in the transcript, there is no quid pro quo there. So I think all those things are incredibly important for folks to understand. And I want to emphasize this too, John. Yesterday it was indeed a bipartisan vote. It was a bipartisan vote against this resolution. There were Democrats that joined Republicans. Every Republican voted against this because we see this for what it is, and that is this is a partisan process. It is not a constitutional process. And the Speaker again says, this is about enforcing the Constitution. Well, there are other elements of the Constitution, the Sixth Amendment, due process. This certainly isn't abiding with that. So as much as they say that it's supposed to be a constitutional process, Article 2, Section 4 process, John, this is 100% political process. This is what it's boiled down to.
All right, so what you're saying is, it was a bipartisan process against it, right? Because 2 Democrats voted, though not a single Republican voted for this basically scam. That's what this thing has turned out to be. Look, we were reviewing in the impeachment war room the other day Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman's testimony, and from what was available, right, which was you have to put together the leaks because it's not available. So you got to piece it together what people say, and so it was 9 hours of his opinion, and he didn't basically like Trump's America First policy. Okay, Trump ran on that, and he didn't like the fact that Rudy Giuliani was back-channeling some things. Okay, he didn't like that. That's not an impeachable offense. I mean, things had gotten back-channeled forever. ever by presidents. It's always happened. I said he didn't like that. What the hell does that have to do with impeachment? I mean, it was like, I don't like this president's policies, therefore let's impeach him or something. I mean, there's no wrongdoing here.
Well, that's exactly right, and I'm sure you saw yesterday, of course, again, the information leaked was about Mr. Mitchell's testimony. It said, hey, listen, I saw nothing wrong or illegal in the conversation that the president had with President Zelensky. So the whole procession of witnesses that are coming up, are all giving their opinion about the conversation. The only thing that matters in this is what President Zelensky believed happened in that conversation, because in order to prove a quid pro quo, somebody has to believe that this allegation that the aid was held up, President Zelensky has to believe that there was some effort to influence, and he said twice that there was not, and that the aid was not held up because of the alleged want for the Ukrainians to pursue an investigation against Hunter Biden. So all those underpinnings of this alleged quid pro quo just aren't there. So and again, you can have all the allegations back and forth. And listen, whenever it's made available, I will look at the full scope of that and determine based upon what's there. But I want to remind folks again, the most important document out there right now is the transcript of that phone call, and I would remind people to go and take a look at that, to read that. And that, I think, is the fundamental element here. You're right, the witnesses are coming in and giving their assessment on what they believed happened during that phone call. And in some instances, John, it's second and third hand information. So it's what they heard from somebody else as to what they're saying happened there in that phone call.
I mean, this whole impeachment inquiry on Ukraine really has everything to do with the fact they don't like President Trump's policies. I mean, the more you see this, the more mind-boggling it is that's what it has evolved to. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about that when I get back and what the path forward is. We're with Congressman Rob Wittman. Rob Wittman, Republican, 1st District of Virginia. That's the Central Virginia area. He'll be up again, obviously, in 2020. Rob Wittman already has ruled out a run for governor in 2021, so that's not going to happen. And he is the ranking member of the all-powerful Sea Power Readiness Committee in Congress. So, Dr. Wittman, your future, I'd love to see you become the chairman of the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. Can you do that?
That I just talked to some folks in the press corps with in the national defense realm, and I did tell them last week that I will be competing for the chairman/ranking member of the full House Armed Services Committee. I'm one of the more senior members of the committee, and I think with my years of experience in chairing 3 of the subcommittees on armed services, and my experience in traveling around the world, understanding all the national defense issues that this nation is facing, and things I've been able to accomplish as subcommittee chairman. For me, I think it qualifies me fully to compete to become the chairman / ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee.
Look, I don't think there's anybody that's more qualified. You've been working on these issues for a very long time. You're very well versed in them. You've been subcommittee chairman, subcommittee ranking member of the Navy, Sea Power Readiness. I think it'd be an outstanding choice here. And look, I think the Republicans are going to take over the House in 2020, especially after the shenanigans that went on yesterday. I think, look, a lot of you got 31 House members, Congressman Wittman, Democrats that won in the midterms in Trump districts. Trump is going to win again, and he's going to win those districts again. And I don't know, a lot of them are going down. 2 of them I don't think are going to get reelected right here in Virginia. So I think the Republicans take over, and I think you're going to be chairman of the Armed Services Committee. That's
I am certainly going to jump in there and compete. I know that there'll be some worthy opponents there, but I am confident that that I'll be able to carry the day when the decision is made by the steering committee.
All right. Well, I'm excited about that. Let's get back to this impeachment vote, these testimonies going on. And I'm just going to ask you a couple questions straight up, okay? It's apparent now that President Trump made the decision to back channel some Ukraine dealings to his personal attorney, who is a private citizen, Rudy Giuliani. Now, a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. They don't like it. Okay, well, it's the President of the United States, so he's a commander-in-chief. Back channeling foreign policy has been done for years by presidents. You might be uncomfortable with it or not like it. Is that impeachable?
It's certainly not, John. And listen, people can have their opinions about how foreign policy negotiations should take place. But throughout the history of this nation, there have always been what is called back channeling or intermediaries having conversations with other nations, with other leaders, to try to move things forward. You are always looking for opportunities to have conversations in a number of different ways to make sure you're communicating the things that need to happen within United States foreign policy. So it's not unprecedented. It's happened throughout the history of this nation. And it's really about trying to get things done, to find other opportunities to talk to folks, to be able to get information, sometimes to leaders. And sometimes those leaders can't or won't meet for a variety of different reasons, to make sure you continue to have conversations. I think it's incredibly important to make sure we have conversations with other nations, because it allows us to move foreign policy forward, to advance the interest of the United States, and many times the ability to go ahead and avoid conflict, to actually get things done that are in the interest of the nation.
So, look, again, you might not agree with it, but it's the president's prerogative to do this. Let me ask you something else. Democrats keep asking this question. Is it appropriate for the President of the United States to ask another government to investigate a political rival, in this case, Joe Biden? And he did do that. He said, "Do me a favor, can you look into this?" So forget the quid pro quo. Is it appropriate for the president? Is it legal for the president to say, "Hey, do me a favor, I want you to investigate this guy, see what the deal is"? Is that an impeachable offense?
John, I don't believe that it is, and I believe that any government official has the obligation to make sure that if they believe there is corruption going on, to ask that it be investigated. As you know, Vice President Biden demanded that a prosecutor there in Ukraine who was investigating this corruption be relieved of his post.
Right.
And one of those investigations was indeed one of the Ukrainian energy companies that Hunter Biden was to become a board member for. So,
right.
There's this back and forth all the time between individuals in the United States government, whether it's Senate. And, there was a letter by several senators saying, by the way, if you don't do these things, we will withhold foreign aid. The bottom line is this: is whenever you believe there is something that is going on that is wrong, or that reeks of corruption, I think you have an obligation to ask that it be investigated. And remember, in this particular circumstance, they are asking to investigate the cyber
right.
efforts that were going on inside Ukraine that were an attempt to influence the 2016 election. So it was really a look back, saying, "Hey, can you look and see what went on during that election cycle? Can you look and see if there is any issues with Hunter Biden and his father, Vice President Joe Biden, with this issue, with him getting this post in this Ukrainian energy firm, who themselves were at the center of a lot of controversy and questions about how they operated." So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that question. So.
Well, look, I don't either. And here's my final thing, Congressman Wittman. The Democrats are saying, well, it was totally inappropriate for the president to ask for a favor to investigate a political rival. If Joe Biden was not running for president, would any of this have changed?
No, it was.
No!
It was, you know, the president ran on fighting corruption, and this is one of the places where he saw it and said, "Hey, I'm going to make an inquiry here." Now, you can ascribe all kinds of political intentions on that, but the bottom line is he saw something and he asked that it be looked at. And again, remember that the aid was given to Ukraine. Ukraine did not investigate Hunter Biden, did not investigate the issues that the president allegedly put forward that he wanted Ukraine to look at. So the foreign aid was finally given, and none of those things that the president allegedly asked for happened. So again, in order for there to be a quid pro quo, you have to ask for something, condition it on something being given, and then what you've asked for actually has to happen. And then you, at that point, can say, okay, now that you did what I asked for, now I will give you what I was holding back. That was not the case here.
Absolutely. Congressman Dr. Rob Wittman, we're out of time. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your candor. Best of luck to you in your pursuit of being a chairman or ranking member of the Armed Services Committee in the House of Representatives. I think you're a fine choice for that, and thank you for sharing your view with us today, as you've done every week for the last 8 years on the John Fredericks Show. Congressman, thank you so much.
Thanks again, John. You all have a great day, and I give my best to your listeners, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, sir.